So it's again, welcome everyone to this session 2 of data visualization and narration. And today we're going to look at actually the fundamentals of effective data visualization, and probably you have an intro into data storytelling as well today. And as I asked you, probably you were able to actually provide some paper and pens, because I would like to invite you actually to really work on small exercises when you actually can really go into like pen and paper work, like a starting point, and then upload it onto the Miro board, so we can have a not just like a frontal input, but you as well as actually have a much deeper learning experience as well. So yeah, I provided you with the email just beforehand with the link to the Miro board. That's actually the platform we will be working on when we do the small exercises. And without much further ado, I would like you to start the session with the intro, presentation. I now think you probably see something different. I have to really check that I don't change the layout of my screens. I think it still doesn't work. Just have to check if my screens are actually different. It's always a little bit a hassle. Just a few minutes, and all it's because I still have a new computer here as well. It's no laptop, and I always have to really introduce the okay, now I think it should be working. Okay, I think now everyone should be able to see the screen with the okay, perfect. Thank you. And just for starting point, just for the beginning, if you could just turn on your cameras just for starters, and then you can turn it off again so we can see some faces, not just blank screens. That would be perfect for a warm welcome. Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. So I know there are real persons behind the screens and not just like robots. Perfect. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, you can turn it off again so we don't actually. Perfect. Okay. Welcome back again, as I said, to our session 2, data visualization narration, which we actually dive a little bit more into the fundamentals of data visualization and an intro to the data storytelling. As you can see here, we'll start with a short performance record briefing. We go a little bit more into details, and probably you already have some questions because you went through the briefing yourself. So we'll try to answer them today. And then we will start. We have 3 different parts of that input, the 5 steps to effective data visualization and storytelling. Yeah. Okay, so let's start and talk about the performance record. Let me do some kind of questions answer session. You probably remember that view when we had last time when we talked about the overview. When you actually start with the briefing, like today, you formed your team, and I must admit, you already, I think, but I think just one person didn't actually allocate him or herself to a team. Otherwise, all the teams are set. I like it very much. You did a great job. So that's like probably you already selected your databases. And then actually we go from the briefing, you read through, you formed your team. We go into that idea exploration, then conceptualization. And in the end, of course, you try to finalize your personal data visualization storytelling, and going to present them as a group at the end of our module. Okay, let's start from the beginning. This, like the teamwork, as you actually did for the preparation for the group presentation, you already did that probably. You actually you looked at your database, you have chosen your topic, and you are actually going to look at it, some kind of the topic background. Why is it important? What is important in there? What you see? You look at the data database. How was it collected? So those kinds of like context information. It's always good to know, is the database reliable? What has done before, and what are the sources of that? And as I said, you can, while you have chosen your topic as a team, you can work individually as a member with different databases. Of course, it's always good probably to advise each other team member, or you talk with each other, and so you probably can give support, and that would be actually a part of that social interaction, having a team. And after you have actually looked at the data set and made your mind up, what's it all about? Is it serious? Are there some risks or challenges because there are probably some outliers, or some data has been missing, just that you know what you're actually working with. And then you go into looking and explore the database to actually look for that kind of interesting or relevant events that you find to be worth to be communicated. So then you actually decide upon those objectives, communication objectives you want to communicate to your target audience. And of course, we will have a look at that. Who is your audience, and what kind of questions do they probably have, and what kind of answers you're trying to find for them by showing them the data visualization and by using storytelling as a sort of building up dramaturgy and emotionalizing your data for your audience. So you have to always look at, you describe your target audience so that we as your viewers then will be known who are actually talking to. Is it more like someone from the lay public? Is it like a family setting, or is it more like a professional experts group that has actually deep or sound knowledge of the topic you're going to do your data visualization and narration for? And very important as well is that you actually describe the kind of user scenario you're going to show your data visualization storytelling within. So that actually know are there some kind of time constraints? How would we assume that your attention span of your target audience would be? Is it more like, as we see in the middle, like an experts group, or is it more like on a casual way, reading the newspaper, you putting probably some kind of infographic storytelling into it, so that we actually know what kind of surroundings, what kind of scenario we're looking at when you're going to present your data visualization storytelling. As well, we want to actually describe your design process, and that starts with you probably going to doing some additional like desktop research. You're going to probably look into probably some premises, needs, and behavior of your target audience. And you're also going to look for design inspirations. That means we want to actually provide us with some kind of visuals. What were like design inspirations that you liked, and you actually tried not to copy it, of course, but to actually adhere to that kind of approach. And so we know, because there are so lots of information design or like data visualizations out there, and probably you looked through when you were looking or researching through your desktop internet, and you find some probably some inspiring visuals, and we want you actually to show us them as well and provide us some kind of input why you think them actually inspirational. And if you have any questions while I'm presenting that kind of design briefing, you just don't have to raise your hand, you just can start talking. Okay, so probably, and once you've done that, you've done your databases, you looked for some kind of message you want to communicate, you know your target audience, and then you start with nitty-gritty. You start actually with your data visualization iteration. That means you probably, and we would actually really invite you to start with really not already going into like a program to work with some digital means, but really make up your mind and probably just start drawing very simple diagrams the sorts of we will go through this session today, and just make up your mind what could be interesting, what kind of approach could I use for just very, very basic. But where do we start? And that's always good to actually just use pen and paper because you really have to think of the basics and not let the program do the work for you in the beginning, which is very important. It's like a cognitive starting point where actually you as the author of the data visualization storytelling actually takes up the lead and starts with a script. So we start probably with, as I said, it would be very nice to see some kind of really pen and paper starting work. And then you go through those iterations. I forgot to mention it. When you're actually going to present your iterations, we would like you to really argument on what you did and what part you liked in your, for example, here in the first iteration, and really provide arguments, not just like, I liked that because it looked good or there were nice colors, but probably bring up some more astute and elaborate arguments, why you've chosen like red or green and what kind of things you liked and you're going to use probably for your next iterations. So things you liked that worked well for you and that you take over for the next iteration. So it means probably you're going into like a digital media and try to actually do some experiments with your initial thoughts you put down with on pen and paper, with pen and paper, and then you start doing some digital experiments. So that this would be like the second iteration. And we also would like you then in your individual assignment to show us those and again, provide some arguments, what you liked in that kind of digital experimentation and what things you probably got going to change. And then, of course, there's a third iteration and it would, because we would like you to really see different design alternatives. So not just the small amendments, but really you tried out something else. Here in that example, you see on the screen, it would be a pen and paper, that's a starting point, then probably some initial digital, and then probably something that you learned during the next sessions. This would be iteration 3 here on the screen, would be some kind of approach when you're going to use physical representation, like figurative interpretation of data. So we see that you actually tried out different things, not just started with an idea and then went all out into Tableau, just worked with the same tables in Tableau. So really probably try to be a little bit more creative and try different tools for your ideas. And all we see, those iterations, they mustn't be, of course, they're just starting points. They're where we actually see how you thought about to going to present your data visualization storytelling to your audience. And then that means, okay, those are those 3 iterations. And really, we would really want you to actually show screenshots and bring forth arguments. Those could be, of course, being like a voiceover. You don't have to write them down because we expect you to do a screencast, which you actually are able to show us slides, you show us screenshots, and you can talk about what you want to see and like showing us around with mouse over effects. And then once you're done with those iterations, you decide which one of those iterations, or you probably bring the good things all over to the, let's say, your final iteration. And then you think about, you take that most suitable approach, so to speak, from your draft, actually work on that one and then start to actually elaborate on that and try to finalize that so that you have some kind of final data visualization you're then going to present as the one you want to target for your target audience in the specific user scenario. So that means you're going to work a little bit more on like the formal aspect, like the design aspects, and try to look for the narrative flow. You change probably some aspects. You're going to change some layouts and those really small things, probably change some smaller amendments in color, whatever. So, and once you have the final data visualization, you think that would be fitting for your target audience in that specific user scenario. We want to actually then to present us that and bring forth astute arguments what you intended to do, why it is the final, why you think it's the most fitting. So bring forth arguments, probably it's a typo is good, the layout is clear so the people can actually read through them. We really want you to be very elaborate and astute with your arguments, why you're actually going to explain to us why it is the most fitting one. And we also want you to actually show us how you intend your target audience to read through that. So that means which are probably the things they look at first, like the key visuals, and how you expect your audience to really navigate through that data visualization. So that means kind of the expected narrative flow. And then in the end, because that were all your own thoughts, what you learned from your learning experience in the module, but we really wanted to actually test your final data visualization with a person, probably a friend, a relative, a neighbor, and actually test your final data visualization with that person. And of course, we like you to document it, the testing, to actually, it mustn't be like an interview transcription, but just like a few key points that your test person actually mentioned why in regards to reading through your data visualization story. So it's not a real, it's some kind of testing, but not, of course, not a real user experience testing, but just that you actually for yourself see what were your expected assumptions, how your target audience will look at your data visualization story, and so that the real life check with a test person you showed your data visualization to. And of course, I realized that or in the past years, students actually mentioned that sometimes it's good to actually not use that kind of approach, not just for the final data visualizations, but in between when you have some kind of iteration, you think, okay, that's a good starting point. I like that. And probably it could also be a team member, of course, but to show it to someone to actually to have some kind of feedback. But sometimes it's a little bit a lonely work if you go through those iterations and you think, okay, I'm fine. But it's probably sometimes good to have just a short feedback from someone you like or you trust, of course, and then work on with that. But that doesn't have to be actually put into the final assignment of your individual work. But we actually want to really to show you or document the testing with your final data visualization story. So, and after you went through that's again, after that, let's say those 4 or 5 weeks of individual work, then you get together as a team again, and you're going to make some kind of like decision-making process where in your team, you're going to present your final data visualization to each other. And then according to some kind of, you decide on a selection process, what kind of criteria you're going to choose the different or to like judge the different data visualizations upon. And then we would like you actually then to get together and also document the process you went through, what kind of criteria you have chosen, and what were the kinds of your team arguments you went through to actually choose the one you think as a team the most fitting in that for the target audience in that given scenario. And this is most of the part you're going to present in the group presentation. That will be live on Friday, the 20th of December. Sadly, it's online, but still we'll manage that just fine. And then, of course, on the Saturday evening, you're going to upload your individual screencast, which actually contains all your work, which is being described in the briefing. And besides that screencast, we really like to have a PDF just of your final data, because the screencast, probably because it's getting very large, you probably have to compress it down, and so the quality probably isn't that high, the resolution, but we want to have to look at your final data visualization to see some details. So that would be nice to have a PDF where we actually can see the details, not just in the screencast, which probably will be a little bit blurred or whatever. So do you have any questions in regards to that assignments we expect you to do?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Yes, please go ahead, Mohammed.
Is it possible to show or upload some examples from the last semesters that we have like an example to see what is expected or what it should be at the end, so more or less?
Thank you. That's a good question. Sometimes it's I think about that not now, because sometimes if you probably adhere to too much what is expected, and there are good ones, and there are like very different approaches, and it would take up quite a lot of time. But probably we will go into that probably next or session 4, when I show you some examples, or I will show some examples in between to make a point, probably to see if there is something in the design principles not being done, but so you have some kind of expectation. But probably not a whole session, because it's got a lot of information, and I really would like you to start with a clear, or let's like an open mind. But I will try to include a little bit more of examples. You will see there are some examples, but not just a whole session on different approaches that have been good. Is that okay? And if
Yes.
you probably have, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Are there any more questions in regard to the performance record?
Yeah, I have again
Yes,
another
go ahead.
question.
Well, all is
I have
clear.
some data sets, but the data sets are all in German. So
Yeah.
is it okay when the visualization is mostly in German?
Yes, I probably mentioned it last session as well. You can do your individual screencast in either German or English language. I think especially if, like myself, if you're like if the English probably is some kind of it's not your native language, of course, probably, then you probably are more at ease if you can actually present in German, in Swiss German. So that's perfectly fine. But for the group presentation, we expect you to actually do it in English so that everyone that is there understands what you're talking about. But your individual screencast, your individual work, you can be done fully in German.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions or?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, please, Nicholas.
On slide 6, you showed that about the data source. Just for my clarification.
Yep. Probably go back.
The whole team has to use the same data set, or is it just that, I mean, for example, hypothetical scenario, we want to maybe know how many types of dogs were bred, for example. And one, for example, in our team members has the data about Labradors, and other has about, I don't know, Bulldogs. So that's fine. We don't have to use the same data set.
Yes, exactly.
Because you said here, it's still teamwork in the group, but setting up the topic background. And
yes, perfectly fine. Thank you, Nicholas. Probably it's that, we always try to be put everything in the briefing, but sometimes it's still like leaves some questions. A perfectly fine question. Thank you. And so, meaning even it's teamwork, you actually can, within the same topic, you can perfectly fine choose your own database. That means you don't have to take, probably there are databases that are so large, and you in the end probably just going to talk about some criteria, things that you find important. And meaning it's a teamwork. Probably you can actually support each other because someone did find a very good database and you're going to talk about it. But you can use different ones. You can merge whatever you do with the data set, and you don't have to use the same one within your team.
Okay. Also, another question. You showed the visualization approach with the iterations.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
Iteration 1, 2, and 3, whatever.
Yep.
And I personally, I mean, those are, in my opinion, static visualizations.
Yeah.
But for example, if I want to do a dashboard in Tableau, whatever, I also have to draw the iteration, what were my ideas, and then I try to set it up, save it, and then I think maybe, oh well, I could have done this and that, and then I'll work again on that dashboard and change it. And I also have to document that. So
yes,
that
exactly. So that's perfectly fine. You can either, if you're working more in a static view, you probably make just screenshots and talk about those and probably show highlight some stuff you talked about. But if you're actually working in an interactive dashboard. In the beginning, we would actually to know why you're going towards a dashboard, why is interaction needed, or why you think it is an added value for that kind of scenario for target audience. And then, of course, you can make probably some like a small video filming of you moving around in your first Tableau iteration, and talk about what you're probably going to change. And then on the third iteration, for example, you're going to show us your next step within, it could be Tableau again.
Or for example, I start, maybe I got my data set, start with Excel, do some basic pivot tables, and then I'll switch to
Yes,
Tableau.
for
That would
instance.
also be a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good, thank you very much.
It's just like we actually want to see those really what has changed, and we really would like you. I know the first iteration when we think about pen and paper, and we realize that many of you probably make some kind of reverse engineering, say, okay, I forgot to think about pen and paper, and then do some sketches afterwards. You actually done your final data visualization. It happens, I know, but it's more like to actually invite you to a learning or like a thinking process through it. And so those like here, the pen and paper sketches don't have to be looked that kind of elaborated because you're probably not illustrated, whatever. But just so we know, what were your initial thoughts? Would you use some kind of bar charts or I don't know, a linear progression, whatever. So your initial thoughts, so we see how you progress before going to Tableau. And then, of course, in the digital way, you can, if you decided, because Tableau is one of the tool you really feel at ease, you then present different approaches within Tableau, because even probably the first draft in Tableau will look rather different than the one you progressed through. You probably make rearrangements, you probably changed in parameters, you introduced a different selection criterias. We will see that dashboards tend to be like dashboards, like a cockpit with KPI parameters showing some kind of KPI factors. But showing a dashboard with KPI factors is not really data storytelling, not yet. So you actually probably have to rearrange it, probably start with an overview and go that kind of guide us as your audience through that. So even within the dashboard, you have to have like sounding titles, and there's still guides people through your dashboard, not just showing different KPIs, and people have to explore and think, okay, I find out what I want to do. So we really want to invite you to that kind of thought process as well. Yeah. Does that make sense for you, Nicholas?
Yes,
okay.
Very, yeah.
Good. Okay. So any more questions in regards to we will have some kind of more like Q&A again, because
yes,
yeah, Alois, please.
Because we select like the overall topic. Now our group has, for example, deforestation and loss of biodiversity.
Yes.
Now my question is it meant that we can select then subgroups? For example, one person looks into rainforest, the other one, for example, into agriculture, etc. So that we have like a global topic, but then within we really select subtopics that we are working individually on.
Yes, that still works. Yes, yeah. As long as exactly.
Okay, then thanks.
Yeah. So we try to actually give you some kind of starting point, but try to leave you the most like freedom to actually use your own database and select a topic that you think you're going to actually produce or actually generate, develop a certain key message with data visualization storytelling. Yes. Of course, if you have more or less a rather focused same topic, it's always good to talk about it. So you actually can really differentiate in between, but it is not a mandatory, of course. Yes. Good. Any more questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, Shirley.
For the visualization, do you have specific tools which you can recommend to work with, or?
Yes, I will. I mean, I will give some kind of hints in next session. I don't want to do it already right now because, as you see, the first iteration should be some kind of your thinking and put it on pen and paper. But I will give some kind of recommendation. But I think most of you actually already have the tools you like to work with most, but I'll give you some kind of let's say, like Canva or like things when you can, if you want to do like an infographic, or even we had last semester, we had a student that did an animated data visualization with selection parameters all in PowerPoint. PowerPoint actually provides you with that, but it all depends how much time you want to invest in that kind, because we don't want you to you don't have to learn Adobe, Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever, because those are very powerful tools, but they use a lot of, have a high learning curve. So there are some easy starting point, like where you have like a test program or test version, excuse me, which you can use for free, and you can try it out. Probably it's just for one iteration. Or even you can do then, if you think more, that's good. Because even if you use like a tool, for example, like Canva, you still have to think about what kind of diagrams you're going to import, how you're going to pronounce or how you put your titles, whatever. But it gives you some kind of, let's say, a graphical layout that gives you some kind of structure, that probably gives you some kinds of security. Because I know if you start working just on a blank canvas in PowerPoint, it could be just overwhelming. But I will provide you with that, but not just now.
Good, thank you.
Okay, no worries. And if I provide you with the examples and you still think it's not enough, we can talk about that. But they will come, but not just yet. Otherwise, you would be probably very focused on working with that or that. And all the tools you're going to recommend, besides those you already know, like probably Tableau, or you're going to work with whatever kind of web-based like programming tool. But as I said, you can actually do everything within PowerPoint. Good. Good. Any more questions? Okay, fair enough. So just for reiterating, if you see here, there's all those kind of important dates and deadlines. So until today, I think most of you, probably just one person actually did enrollment. And I think, yeah, it was just like, I think just one person, Vincent, he already found a team. Perfect. So I think you're all set, did a great job. So that's no worries about that. So we had today Q&A. We will have one on 13 December as well. And then those are just like handing in the group presentation on Wednesday, 18 December. You have the live presentations on Friday, and then you're going to hand in or submit your individual work onto Ilias. So we will just do a short warm-up exercise, and we're going to do that on Miro to really to get into the kind of mood to think about how we're actually going to start with data visualization when we begin with that. So I would like to invite you do you have all your pen and paper and in front of you with your color markers probably? If not, I would like to invite you to actually grab them and put them in front of you so you're able to start really working on paper. So as I said, I would like you actually to take your sheet of paper, could be A4 or whatever, or what makes you more easier. You could also work in a digital tool if you like to, but it's always good to really start with pen and paper. And I would like you to actually draw the outline of a world map. It's like looking at that map, you can copy it. It mustn't be exact. It's just like some sort of structure that is given so you can work with that. So I would like you to invite you to first start outlining the world map. And then as a second step, I would like you to invite you to visualize the following aspects on that world map you have drawn very loosely on your A4 paper. So first is I would like you to indicate with your markers, could be different colors, whatever, the places you have already been. They could be either a country or very specific, also a city. And then on a second aspect, I would like you to indicate how long you've been there. It could be amount of years or months. So do you indicate that as well next to the place where you have been before? on your vacation, could be also like study programs you've done abroad. And then as a third aspect, oh no, first, apologies. First was just the year you've been there or the time, like the year, yeah, exactly when you've been there. And then I would like you to indicate how long have you stayed at this place, like in days or that amounts you probably remember. And as I said, it mustn't be exact, just like an approximation. And after that, I would like you to actually indicate or visualize what have you been doing there. And still with pen and paper, this could be like looking for a very simple icon or symbol to indicate what have you been working, have you been studying, was it some kind of vacation you've been doing there? But not write it down, but try to use a very simple like visualization, like a symbol or an icon. And again, it's not about graphical aesthetics. It's just about readability or something that comes to your mind. It's a warm-up. Don't always remember. And then, still on the same map, I would like you to actually indicate or visualize where would you like to travel in the next few years. What were your probably future plans or a country or a city you want to explore in your future time? Okay, so let's do that. I would like to invite you. You all have the link for the Miro board. So I'd like you to work really on pen and papers. Don't say we don't need more than probably 10 minutes. And then once you've done that, I would like you to, after you have done your markers on your set, then I would like you to invite you to really look at what you've visualized on that kind of world map. Probably it looks very colorful, whatever, but actually to look for one aspect you think would be the most interesting to know. Probably you've been the most times to the United States, or you have stayed in one city for the longest of time. So just think one thing, it mustn't be that relevant, but think that you're like, okay, that's one point that surprises me in my own travels, my own being staying abroad. And just choose one aspect and put that or like visualize that with a simple visual diagram, a chart. It could be very simple, just like indicating how long you've been in the different places. So one aspect we see, okay, there's some aspects that really are interesting. And put that in a bar chart. It could be in a time chart, whatever. Could be a pie chart. What else? Just a very easy, simple visual diagram to put that one aspect of those 5 questions you've looked at and put that in a visual diagram. Also draw that with just a pen on paper. And after you've done that, I invite you actually to make a photo of your visualization and upload it onto the Miro board I've provided. And it would be the first warm-up exercise. Do you have any questions in regards to that warm-up exercise, or does it make sense? Is it clear to you what I expect you to do? Or probably you're already working hard. Okay, because on the Miro board you actually also have the assignment, the task. So I will probably just undo the Freigabe. So you actually have a free view on the Miro board. Of course, you're going to start to work on pen and paper first, but then you're going to upload it onto the Miro board. And as I said, the exercise is also written down on the Miro board. I would say I include a timer. So don't use more than probably 10 minutes to actually conclude with your pen and paper drawing, and then try to upload it. It doesn't have to be finished. It's just like a starting point, okay? So I will start a timer so that we have an approximation. Let's say I make 10 minutes, and after that, I would like to invite you to make a photo and upload it, because it also needs probably a few minutes time to do that. Okay, no more questions. Then happy working, and we see each other in like this 10 minutes. So there's like 1 minute left. Probably try to think about finishing what you've started. As I said, it doesn't have to complete, but it would just be nice to have an overview of different approaches, how you tackled the warm-up exercise. So just think about just finishing, probably lay down your pen and make a photo and try to upload it. So we have probably some diverse data visualizations from you. So the time is up, but I will still give you 1 or 2 minutes more to try and upload your data visualization drafts onto the Miro board. You already have a very nice example already there, but probably, we have a few already and another one there as well. Very nice. So I think we're good. We already have some very interesting examples on the Miro board. So unless you're just on the brink and uploading it, probably just let the things be and let's have a look at the Miro board and have some kind of short discussion about what you see without cluttering. Probably some of you that have images still a little bit cluttering the screen, probably try to make it a little smaller so it doesn't clutter the screen too much. Okay, fair enough. Just leave it be. It's cool. Just lay down your things. That's fair. We have rather good examples. And let's have a look now together at the screen, what you've done. You should be able to see the screen right now. Yeah, it's still busy working. Probably just let it be, even if it's not really in the right format. Just it's cool. I'll probably see it. It's all good. Okay, let's start with probably won't be able to look into everyone, but we start with that one here. Can you see it on the screen? Perfect. I'm actually very astounded that that person was able to actually really reproduce a very exact or nearly very exact replication of the world. I don't know how you did that in that short period of time, but actually, what you realize it's doable. Very nice. And what we have here is I just try to be like naive or like a layperson looking at the chart and try to find out what is being communicated to myself. So what you see here, I have some kind of axis indicating probably where that person has been. I don't know because there is probably the kind of a legend is missing. So I don't know the context, but I see that our axis, we have some interesting little icons like in the midst of the ocean. Probably there was some kind of, is this some kind of whale, a tail of a whale, whatever. Then we have some tent, and we have that year indicating, I assume it's the year when that person has been there. And behind that year, there is some kind of like the indication of the weeks. I assume that the W stands for weeks. But realizing I think it's very clear. It's done with different colors and it's very readable. But probably one would expect to have some kind of legend. So we really know it's not just guessing, but we're really sure it's about probably the green axis would be future plans and the red ones the person has been. But I realize, man, this map is looking very, these visualizations are very nice and good and exact and readable with that given time, but still probably to make it even more perfect would be some kind of legend. So we know the context, what it is all about, what we see here. And what we have again here is a simple diagram that indicates probably the amount of weeks or the time. Oh, the number of visits. Okay, I see that. It is the axis. A number of visits the person has been to North America. That's 3 times, and 1 time that person wants to go. South America, we have some abbreviations, and most of them we can actually know. We know them because we have context of different names. South America is also a wishful country to visit, but I think it's realizing probably that person wanted to actually communicate how that in Europe the person has been actually traveling, or that would be the interesting part, would be a lot of being traveling to Europe, being to Europe. But still, there are some kind of like some countries of the bucket list to visit. But as you can see here, I think it's a very clear and very well done visualization. Okay, let's go over to the next one. This one here. Probably can just, I think we can just move it around. Is it like?
In the left corner,
Yes.
there's this rotate.
Okay, you have that.
Down left.
Lower left
Oh,
on
yes,
the,
right,
next to
lower
the
left.
image.
Oh, okay, I have it. Because there's so many things on my screen. Thank you very much. You see, I learn all the time. Cool. Okay, fair enough. Here I have a more reduced, but also very fine. It's still, what you realize, even it's very reduced and abstract, we still see the world. So geographical information, if something is geographical, using a map is a very efficient visualization, and it's a map is actually a quantification of geographical information, but we can read it. But what you realize, there is some kind of a text legend next to it, like you probably assume these are countries, Italy. Years, there's some kind of icons. Probably this is like staying, probably housing or has been living there. But if you get a little bit closer to the map, but you realize it starts to get a little bit cluttered. So because we see that in China, the person has been to China, obviously, or wants to go there. But we realize, especially if you have that much information, if you put that layering that on top of each other, it's actually not that readable anymore. Fair enough. Probably it's always not to use too much space, but you realize if you want to actually indicate different information, probably either you have to make like a focus or make the map bigger, or probably using some layering, like interactive parts where information is layered on different countries. But still, I think it's a nice approach, even and probably much more reduced than the one before I've seen. And as we have seen, because it's too much cluttered, it's not really for myself. It's not that really readable. There's a lot of guesswork going on. still, as I said, it's always good to have some examples. Oh, this one is an interesting one because it's very abstract. Yes, but as we know, it should be a world map. We are guessing, right? Is it from North America or whatever? And it's interesting, even if this looks like actually abstract art, but having the context, because we know the task, we still can read that. And interesting here, we have like really like the legend, places to visit with dark blue, and places to visit like future plans, dark blue, and the already visited places in light blue. And so also legend, that's always good having context information. So that helps me to understand what we see. So we don't know which country, which exact location it was, but we realize that the person has been to different places and how that kind of emotional state that person was in when she went there. A very interesting approach. I like it also using that kind of smileys, the emoticons we actually are known of, some kind of like emotionalizing icons. But we realize that because it's very clear, we have some kind of legends, we have an explanation, and even if the world map is very abstract, we still get the overall message. Of course, if you want to be more precise, this would probably be more too loose. But so you have some kind of overall impression and what kind of personal impressions that person had when visiting the place. I think it's a very interesting approach. Let's have a last one before the break. This one also has been drawn the map rather loosely, but we still realize that it's an approach to the world map. And also have some kind of legend. Okay, there's like green, but probably the time wasn't enough. So we don't know, probably the person doesn't have any inclinations to visit another country. This could be also true. But according to the legend, we don't see any of that colors on the map. And we see with color grading some kind of differentiation things where the person has been living, different colors for using that kind of color criteria to actually indicate where the person was. Probably as you can realize, using different kind of icons, especially if you draw them by hand, it's always a little bit of a challenge. So probably we have to do a little bit of guesswork to find out what kind of that means. But fair enough. I mean, it wasn't enough time. This one is an interesting one, probably down here, because this looks like this one to the left-hand side is like a family, probably it's the relatives, I don't know. And to the right-hand side, it's like a hand, probably, I don't know, it's like a heart in between. But it's more like approachable because you see there's many people in here have some kind of, I don't know if it's a hand or if it's more like, I don't know, a tail from a whale watching, whatever. But I see it's always, as soon as you start to be more precise and use like common knowledge, and we, even if there's with some smaller guesswork, we realize and we find out stuff. As there are different approaches, we don't have time to look at them all, but I thank you very much for being so open. It's not sometimes a little bit a hard creative approach, but I'm very impressed what you have done. Okay, thank you very much. Probably before we go into the break, just will stop. Yes, here, okay. And let's get back to the presentation. So, you probably think, okay, that's as we have seen, probably those, not all of them, it's sometimes a hustle, and you think, okay, I'm not an illustrator, I'm not an artist, but it's not about actually trying to make an aesthetic pleasing illustration, but why do we actually start with pen and paper? Why do we actually implore that you invite you to really do that? The first thing is, it really helps you to structure your thoughts, because paper, when you put something on paper, it's not like a passive butler who just saves your thoughts as they are. And when you put something on the white canvas, you really have to think about it to be structured. Because if your thoughts are not that structured, or what you don't know what you want to do, what you see in the paper probably is not that elaborated, not structured yet. So it helps you to actually make up your mind and put that on a paper, and once you realize what you've done, you're like a brain, like a brainstorming map or what you want to do, you realize as soon as that is readable for yourself or for someone else, your thoughts are probably going to be structured along that kind of visualization you provided. So you can use that kind of visualization to really, okay, change your thoughts and make it like a feedback to what you think. And as well, why do we start with pen and paper is because it doesn't distract us, you as a data story creator. Because if you just use that kind of white unruled paper, it's got a lot of possibilities. It also can be of course some scare. It can be scary if you do that. But still, you have to actually start with one item you find important and start to put other things there. If you use a program, the program actually provides you with so much stuff, things that you probably didn't really think about it, but still it's there, and you think, okay, nice. But actually, it's probably something you would rather leave away if you had to really make it yourself in the starting point. So it starts with no distraction, no things, no colors, without any borders of a program. You really have to think from scratch. And then, of course, because sometimes it lets you stay high level. It gives you an overview. Probably you start with the big picture and think about, okay, I want to talk about the world or things that are important. And then you go into details. And that kind of thought process, going from an overview and then picking out probably some examples, some parameters of things you find important, also is an approach how you're probably going to provide some kind of story. What is the starting point? What is the overview? And what are the details that actually provide additional information to that phenomenon, that events you're going to actually present to your audience? The kind of storytelling approach we're going to look at today with an intro and in the next session, of course. Okay, with that, I would like you actually to we make a break. I push a little forward. Here we have the break because, yeah, let's make a break, 10 minutes, take a coffee, and then we meet again here and start with the 5 steps to effective data visualization. Or are there any questions from you in regards to the pen and paper, like warm-up exercise? Okay, probably not. It's like really getting to use to really work with your thoughts and try to put them in a visual order on a white canvas. Okay, let's make a break. See each other in about 10 minutes. So welcome back, everyone. Probably just so that you know, probably indicate that you're back. Otherwise, we'll wait a few minutes more because I actually started the break a little bit too late. So if you're back, just raise your hands. Otherwise, I will just wait a few minutes more. Okay. Thank you, Sean and Joshua. I think we probably just wait 2 minutes more so that everyone is probably back and doesn't miss anything. So probably everyone is back again. Welcome back from your break. And yeah, now let's dive into that input when you look at the 5 steps to the effective data visualization. So it means effective data visualizations being very basic can mean, as you know, the difference between success or failure when it comes to communicating the results of your study, whatever, raising funds for your charity, presenting to your board of directors, or as we look at simply, or not simply, but communicating your key message to your audience. So what we will do, we'll actually go through those 5 steps to this afternoon. We start with understanding context. We choose effective visuals. We will look at how we can create visual order and how to draw the attention of our audience to things that are more important. And then we have a short intro on how to tell a story with a simple data diagram. So when we actually, this may probably sound illogical, but actually the success of a data visualization story does not start with the data visualization itself. So rather, before we embark on the path of actually visualizing data, we really should make sure to understand actually the context or the need of the communication, who is our audience, and what are we trying to actually communicate to them. And you realize that as soon as you think about your target group, there are so many different like demographical or situational aspects that you think about to really be able to communicate very focused and adapt your data visualization story towards that. So there are questions that probably are the starting point when you think about your context, understand your audience. So you have to know actually who is your audience, or who is your audience going to be, and what kind of questions do they probably have. So according to if you're going to present the data visualization to your audience, you should actually probably think about what are their motivations they need. Why should they look at your data visualizations? Does it probably align with what they actually confronted with to do the daily work, whatever? So what kind of questions does your target audience have? And then, of course, because you're going to provide a visual data visualization to them, you want to actually find some answers, probably to some questions they have, but something that aligns with their motivations and needs. And so in the end, and to present that, you actually would like you have to think about how do they put it in a story? What kind of story are you trying to tell to your audience? So we can actually simplify that to in starting point to really those three questions. Who's your audience? What do you need them to know, or what do you want to communicate as a key message to your audience? And of course, how I'm going to do that. And that is, of course, very simple spoken, that is your data visualization story. That is the approach, how you're going to communicate the message, that is the what, it's the starting point, the things you find out from your database, the items you think relevant, you want to communicate to your audience. And if you think about your audience, there are from Longcount, it actually provides us with some kind of aspects or points, parameters we have to think about when you think about communicating closer target groups expectations. So the first thing would be the visual or the design of your data visualization should be developed in line with the target audience's requirements. That means the information level and units you actually provide should be providing according to the audience. That means if your audience is more like a layperson audience, then you probably don't use any very complicated measurements or complicated units they actually don't understand, and all in relation to their own needs. As the second part, the medium, the media you're going to use, the channel, the communication channel, should actually be conformed to the audience expectations. That means the person that is used, it could be over Instagram, like over social media, or is it in front of a presentation, a live presentation. You also have to think about, are those really or how I can actually address my audience? If you probably think about addressing a problem that is in regards to probably elderly people, and you're going to use Instagram or social media, you really have to make sure, is that the real channel? Is it a good channel to actually approach your target audience? Or are there probably some kind of hindrances if you're going to use that or another channel? That means your target audience should be really aligned with the touch points of the channel you're going to provide the information through. And then, of course, thinking about the visualization of your data, thinking about design principles we looked at last session, and the pre-attentive attributes, your message, your data visualization should be very clear, and also the context information. If you use like visuals as well as text, they should actually be very clear what the text should mean and what the visual adds to your information. So it must be very clear and transparent. How the visual like structure of your data visualization should be clear and readable for your target audience. And as we will see, titles or textual information should, of course, correspond or connect with the visuals. And last but not least, the consistent use of your visuals, of your the fonts, whatever, should be also in a way that is readable and consistent for your target audience. That also refers to design principles. Things that have the same relevance should be, when you're using typo, should be the same color or the same typo size. So just don't move them around. Use all we have learned last time from design principles and pre-attentive attributes to really make your visual be consistent and doesn't actually implore any unnecessary cognitive stress onto your target audience. So if you think at different situations, at different user scenarios, we could probably think about a live presentation when you're actually going to present with visuals what you want to talk to. And if you have a live presentation, you have a lot of freedom, because if there are questions, you can answer them. If something is not clear, you will be able to actually provide additional information so that not everything has to be on the slide, because you add that as a verbalized information adding to the visual. But if you think producing like a static infographic or a data visualization within a paper or like printed media, you have to make sure that every detailed information that is needed, legend, source, whatever, has to be in there, because there is no probability or possibility to change it afterwards. So if you think about the context setting, the demands on the level of detail that you're providing and the amount of control you have over the situations depend varying to the situation. As I said, if you have a live presentation, you have a lot of control, so the level of detail doesn't have to be at that precise level. On the contrary, if you're going to have like a static written document or even a digital data visualization on the screen, you have to put everything that is needed to understand your data visualization should be there. So you have to make different thinking about layout, whatever, because everything has been there. Probably there's some kind of interactive part where you can actually hide and show information, but it's much more, it's like a change of control and level of detail you have to think about when you move along that axis. And as well, if you talk about your audience size, that means the more specific you can be, like the audience, the more like a more technical jargon or technical details you can provide, because you know, and you should know the background knowledge or the average background knowledge of your target audience. So it means if you want to address a more like over social media, that would be your desired channel, the complexity of what you're going to provide cannot be that high if you want to address a lot of people. So that means you have to make sure really according to the kind of like the metrics, at what grade you actually going to communicate. Is your target audience more like an expert person? What kind of knowledge they have, background knowledge? So you can actually use that, your data visualization can be more complex, include more expected knowledge. It is just like for reading pleasure. We realized over the last, I think 10 years or more, like 20 years, we realized they're all like that the average attention span of human beings has changed normally. You can see it was about average 30 seconds in 2000. Nowadays, because many use not only internet users, or people that actually use internet on their mobile phones, whatever, the attention span has been going down. So you have to always think about that. If you're going to address over social media, you have to really use like those key visuals, whatever, to get the attention, but at the same time, you have to get into the deepness of your information. Otherwise, people will just like swipe it away. Also, that's just taken from a study. You see, even a goldfish has some kind of attention span, just to make a point. So if you think about the scenario, you target person, you have to think about, has a person ample time to really read through a newspaper? Has it like a half an hour to make a deep dive into your data story? Or is it something even still on the printed paper, but the person only reads over like a small paragraph with a good title and good key visual, because a person waits on a train and probably just only has about 1 to 5 minutes time to read into your data visualization story? Or to the more extreme, if you talk about like key message over the social media platform, it has to be very clear and cannot contain too much information. On the contrary, of course, if you talk to you have like a discussion group with subject matter experts, you can expect people to have quite a fond knowledge, background knowledge. So you have the grade of details can be much higher. And if you remember probably what we thought about that balancing act between the challenging, because if you don't challenge your audience, people actually are not motivated to read through that. So you have to make that balance between simplifying, so don't make clear visual layout, use design principles and pre-attentive attributes, because that's that's how human visual perception works. But then think about how you can actually invite or motivate your audience to read through your data visualization story. So that's always a kind of balance between exploring. You remember that visualization of the overfishing infographic, which contains a lot of information, but actually needs the person or the scenario to have ample time to actually the people having time to read through that dense information. If it's more to the explanative time, probably thinking about something more like a fast channel over social media, probably going to use just very simple diagrams without a lot of in-between or textual information. So it's always that kind of balance, and probably when you go through iterations, think about it, you're going to make amendments. You probably add information if you realize it's too simple, or you have, even if you think about having a user scenario where people have a lot of time, you probably have to, according to the target audience's needs, motivations, you have probably to reduce your density of information to really balance it out. So move towards exploratory if people have more time and are interested in the deep dive on your topic, or move towards explanatory if really simplified, if the person or the channel you're going to, or the target group or the channel you're going to address, your target audience to communicate and to has just short period of attention span, and people want to read through within a few seconds, have to get the main message. And of course, that kind of, it's always a balancing act. It's not really strict science, and you have to really think about things. And if you bring forth arguments, it's not like strict. Sometimes you actually never know exactly how your target audience is going to read through your data visualization story, but still you have some kind of grand parameters which you actually can, according to them, develop your data visualization. So any questions to that? Good. Okay. So now after you really thought about what is the main message you wanted to communicate, what is the context, in what kind of situation you're going to talk to your target audience, you're going to think about, especially if you start with pen and paper, as you did in that short warm-up exercise, what are probably the most effective visuals you're going to use so you get the very simple or the main key messages in the starting point. And that means if you think about effective visuals, of course, you have to think about the power of using the power of human perception. So we have to think about pre-attentive attributes and, of course, the Gestalt or design principles we encountered or experienced in last session. If you think about the different approaches or different visuals there are quite a lot of very good like sources, and I put them also in the documentation, which will be uploaded after the session, which you can actually move along. If you want to show some kind of deviation, there are different kinds of diagrams or correlations, or there's some kind of probably change over time, or some kind of magnitude differentiation. You use probably a bar chart. And if you want to show some kind of part of a whole, more not very detailed, but more they're probably going to use a pie chart. But they're very good resources that help you actually choose. And probably we will see it's probably the most simple that are probably not that most exciting, but we don't have to be exciting in the beginning. We have to make it just clear so that our target audience gets the main message. So we're going to look at just a few examples, probably the basic ones, but we realize that some of those we don't think about because they seem probably trivial, but those are actually that we start from. Okay, let's start. If you think about, or if you look at that, it already looks very simple. It's like two bar charts in a vertical line. We have a title and we have some like contextual information. But if you think about that example, you could probably make it even more easier. It's already quite reduced, but still, if you want to have a real, one key message to actually try to communicate to the target audience, you can actually just use text, as you can see here. That's actually, of course, it's been focused, but if you want to really communicate what's the difference is, we can actually use text, and you can see here it's actually being used in a graphical way, so that 20% of those children that had a traditional stay-at-home mom in 2012 compared to the 41 in 1970. It's very clear and it's very reduced in comparison to that. So always think about, use that most effective one. If you want, that's your main message you want to communicate, what is the difference, or what is like the new actual percentage, you can use text. Text is your friend. And you can see here, it's also with visually, it's like graphically advanced. So we have a typo, those 20% really stand out. And probably that's the main message that will reside in your target audience's minds. So Even tables, if you think about tables, and sometimes we think about tables just being the starting point. When you look at a database, it's being actually aligned in some sort of a table. But if you think about, and tables are good because we know how to read them. So it's like we go through them like a zigzag, how we read text, at least in the Western countries. But if you think about those tables, if you use them, it's actually not the borders. If you think about what is really important, it's not the borders that should use that much of like here, like black ink, or probably think about reducing all that, like the borders, like in that example, so that only the content, that is what we actually want our audience to read. So it's very important. Don't use too broad borders, but actually reduce everything that's not needed so that we actually only see or use that kind of cognitive load or cognitive resources for the content and not of, even it's not all romantic, but don't, even if you make a different borderline, it uses still cognitive load. And if you think about showing a differentiation, like if you think about a heat map, like we have also, it's still like in a table structure. But if you have the content, people, if you think about that kind of table, people would try to really look around and look for important stuff that is that you want to stand out. But if you use a heat map, you realize that just a gradient of color, you have the attention on those items that are very important. So to add up to the category, especially if you have more than like 3 categories in a table, make a heat map is very efficient to really let your audience see what is important. And the important stuff is we still have the other information. There's nothing left out because we have not just focused on category 5 because they're probably here in that example are the highest percentages. But people can actually look around. It's a lot of an explorative approach while the diagram being very effective. Of course, you can use line graphs. And we can also include multiple series, you know that. But still think about if you're going to use more than like 4 like series, it starts to clutter up. So you always, in the head, you have to think about probably what is important to make that stand out and leave the other probably in a gray background so that you have the focus of what is important, what you want to actually communicate stands out. And you will realize if you use different colors and you use more than 4 or 5 series, it still starts to clutter up and people won't be able to read all or differentiate what you're going to translate, even if it's very effective, the line graph. Of course, the bar charts, they are very suitable because they're easy to read. Sometimes you think, oh, that's too simple. No, we have to think about use very simple, effective ones. And you can see here, you can also use vertical bar charts for single series, 2 series, multiple series, but as you start to realize as soon as we have the more than 4 like items within the categories, it starts to get a little bit complicated because we have to start to really look at the ends of different bars to realize what the changes are. Probably you could think here more using a different kind of approach, but still, as a starting point, bar charts are your friends as well. And this is like, because if you think about starting with pen and paper, using very simple diagrams is easy to draw by hand. So having those kind of simple diagrams as a starting point helps you to really make out those items you want to actually compare to each other, which things that stand out. As I said in the example before, and as you can see here, this is also a vertical bar chart. And we have different kinds of products being sold and we see some kind of change. But you realize now here that we have a change from 2008, 2014, from product A to product E. But the thing is like, because we have to always compare them, and it's even if it's a simple bar chart, probably we could use a different approach using like a line chart. Because if it's about the change in prices overall over time, a timeline, a line chart that is actually progressing over the years, is much readable and gets to the point. And you can even include like a recommended range, whatever. Of course, this is additional information, but it's much easier to read according to the goal you want to communicate. Of course, we have then also the horizontal bar charts, and those are sometimes more easier because you have more place to actually if the categories are long names, it's easier to read because you can actually like move down or have like a scrolling from top to down. If you have more than 5 categories, it's probably easier to do that in a horizontal bar chart than in a vertical. But even if it's simple, you have always to make sure that if you look at that example here, you see there is some, of course, it's from a time long past, but still it's being done like nowadays. You see here there's a difference between like tax cuts that were now and it was before, and you see there's a huge difference. And you realize if you would actually do that with the scale starting with 0, the difference would still be visible, but it is not that over exaggerated. That means, especially if you think about your audience being more like a channel that is very short capped or a lay person, if they look at that kind of cut y-axis, they would think that that difference is much higher because that is what they will remember, the difference. And you have to always make sure if you do it like this way here, you actually, especially if you want to be precise and you talk to a lay audience, you have to really make sure not to be manipulative. If you talk about, if you want to make something more expressive, you still should start to show the overall view, and then probably you can zoom in and show differences because you want to really explore something. But probably that's something you do when you're analyzing your database. You're going to zoom in to see if there are real differences or if the differences are very probably not that high. But always make sure that you're not by putting something in a visual over-exaggerating place to really manipulate your audience in a way you actually shouldn't do. It's actually misleading. And if you talk about pie charts are always very they are used quite a lot of time, and they were already looked at let's say in a proficient way, and there are lots of pie charts in newspapers and stuff. But if you think about, I would actually like you to invite you to write in chat. I would like you to try to guess the percentages of each supplier A and B. Probably just write in the chat what amount of percentages supplier A provides for the market share and supplier B. Just write in the chat. Think about it, because it's a simple graph. It should be very easy to see, isn't it? Okay, David, now 33 both, and then 20 and 10%. Okay, and David actually wrote down a third, so they look like nearly the same. And Chucky actually said this is 13 and 32. Okay, let's have a look at how it really looks like. Oops, apologies, it was too fast. I mean, this is coming out really, this is not manipulated. This is coming out as that from Excel. As you can see here, supplier A has not that much, but it's a higher percentage. And we realize without any numbers that make it more clear, just by looking at the visual representation, we probably would guess wrong. So, of course, you can always just add the numbers, but still, and especially here, because it's in 3D, there's some kind of perspective distortion. And you have always make sure, if you want to be precise, probably you're not going to use a pie chart. If you want to show something as a part of a whole, so approximately, fair enough. But as soon as you want to be very detailed, you have to make sure that things are clear. Either you're going to use real numbers, or probably going to use a bar chart, which is much more precise. When we talk about like this kind of area representations, we have to always make sure, if you look at that kind of a simple diagram, you actually have to guess, is the red part, like the red area, is it just on top of the blue one, or is it just lying behind it? Of course, when adding like legends and axes like content information, you probably would find out, but you have to really make sure that it is prone to misinterpretation. And as a different example that is actually much more guesswork, that's like a graph being used for like toy marketing. and that if you use like figurative and not like geometrical forms, and then you actually want to show differences in probably sales of toys or teddy bears over the last year or between 2009 and 2010, we actually don't know the numbers. It's just like, is it half, whatever? And especially if you use different kinds of figurative representations, like the difference of toys being sold probably for girls or those probably for boys. It's just like, it looks probably like pleasing because it relates to the things you're going to sell, but it's actually not detailed at all. It's a lot of guesswork. And so we don't talk about, if you think about figurative or area representation, we have to really make sure if you can stay in a kind of clearness or detail. And so that means we have to use it with caution. But we know that those kinds of figurative visualizations can be open to misinterpretation, but they also are actually they lend themselves to a more natural interpretation. When we describe simple line drawings, well, when we use them, like here, it's about meat consumption or meat waste. And as you can see here, it's by using an area chart and use figurative representational thing. We just realize, oh, it's about the animal. It's about, like here, this is a chicken. It's about ducks, whatever. So it is additional information, and you could actually say that's also like it's some kind of emotional visualization, because it's not just like geometrical forms, but it's a representation of the beings or the objects that lie behind them. So also that kind of representation also is rather helpful, because people actually realize what it's all about in a very fast in a very short period of time. It's much intuitive and more faster. But still, you have to be sure you have to include a sort of detail, as you can see here, in that kind of that's a student's work as well, being done very well. That's, as I said, that's an example of a final data visualization which is being done, and that person, of course, that has a graphic designer background, so it looks very, very calm and very simplified, but still uses all the kind of design principles, and it's very well done. Okay, looking at things that probably are not that effective as well. If you think about 3D or three-dimensional representation, I would like you to just write in chat about the numbers of tickets issues being ever actually processed in January, February, and March. Just write the three numbers into the chat. What would you guess, or not guess, but see what they would be for those 3 months? Just write it in chat. Okay, thank you much. Okay, Alec and Shalawek, it's like some kind of 0.75, 0.8. And okay, and Ichika and Chola also thought it was not some full numbers. But if you look at it, actually it's just full numbers. It's like 1, 1, 2, 2. And what we realize is there is some kind of invisible like horizontal axis, or like an invisible tangential plane that actually is intersecting. And you just realize if you just have to, as soon as you have to start to use simple diagrams and have to do guesswork, it's actually not that effective and it's misleading. So I would say just try not to do that, especially because it's misleading, and I would say it doesn't even look that nice, but just try to be very simple and use that kind of effective visuals that really align to the pre-attentive or like the human visual perception. Here is another example. This has actually been done. It has been done by a university in Michigan, and it was like some kind of quiz where people had to guess how many times the small item can be represented in the larger one. And you realize that on top left one, it is doable. It's still a bit of guesswork, but probably the longer or the smaller line is about 2 or a bit more times the big one. If the numbers get a little bit smaller, it's or rather not that easy to guess. But as soon as we go over areas, and even especially if we go into like volumes or like 3D, it's actually not really, we cannot, our minds actually not able to really represent or actually digest the kind of how many amounts the small part is being included in big ones. So we have always to make sure that 3D and area representations are not that effective or are even misleading. So probably if you use like those kind of pie charts, we can use them if we want to represent a part of a whole as a starting point. But as soon as we want to be very precise and get into details, we should be very careful to probably not use 3D and area representations at all. And even if it's probably, assuming probably like, oh, it looks nice, I would like to do or include that, you have to really make sure, because you're like data scientists and you should adhere to also those kind of clearness and precise like ethical criteria. So to sum it up, what is the right visual? Actually, the answer is like whatever is easiest for your audience to read. You don't have to be extravagant. You don't have to use any things that are, because you have to want to make the content, your data that is actually going that is provide your information. So that means also you can use pie charts because they're used quite often, and they're probably they look good, especially in conjunction with a graphical or geographical map representation. If you want to like showing a part as a whole. If we talk about 3D, it's just difficult to read, so try to avoid that. So, and there is also, I included in documentation, as well as I said, some resources that help you actually to, according, if you want to make a comparison, if you want to make a relationship or distribution, probably don't go too far, but there are a lot of resources I will provide you, or you can look back and the resources from the documentation that help you probably choose the one. But probably you'd start with a very simple one, either a line chart over when you want to show something that the differentiation over time, or use a bar chart, vertical or horizontal one, if you want to make like a comparison between different kinds of categories or numbers. Yes, those are the resources I provide you with, which also probably can be used as an inspirational access. They're really nice. They show different examples, even from past time. So I think it's very approachable and good resources. So now we have looked at what kind of visuals you're probably going to use. You have made up your mind already of what probably approach you're going to take. But now, if you think about when we put something on a canvas, on a whiteboard, on a white canvas, we have to make sure or to think about everything you put there. It could be words, you put key color, whatever. Everything you put there uses that kind of visual load. And that means everything you put there should have some informational meaning and should adhere to the visual design principles and pre-attentive attributes to actually minimize cognitive stress. So by creating visual order, we help our readers to actually be able to really digest what we present them. So, as an example, if you put everything on the map, a diagram, each one, we put text, we put context information, everything that is needed actually to make that kind of easier, or the simple diagram, to make it really clear and precise. And we even added here some kind of information and put some kind of lines to put like emphasis on what is important, what we want our audience to read through. But if you think about the kind of graph, you probably could make some amendments. Because if you look at it, it still clutters the whole screen. And so we have to think about what could be changed here. And we will go through that just by example. If you think about text, if you see that it's like centralized text and there are different kinds of typos being used, you could think about how to change that actually. So you think about what can we make it easier, not leaving things away, but using all the information, textual, graphical, diagram representation, but to make it more easier to read, to bring some kind of visual order. And you probably remember that when you thought about that design principle of proximity and similarity, where we actually align the text using different same typos, whatever. So we think about that. We could actually make it more readable if we just use the same typo and not a typo that is hard to read. That meaning here we have a serif typo, but this is a more like Arial, whatever, a typo that is easier to read. And we don't use it in a centralized alignment, but more in a left-hand side. So those kind of texts, they really form some kind of blocks. Those are like seen, we realize that's a block. That's actually information in a textual aligned order. And as well, we can even then make them more, we can use the kind of different kind of textual typo to really make things stand out that actually are more important that we want our audience to read through. So it's the same content of the information, but by just using the kind of typographical alignment, we actually realize that from going from here to here, there's more white space. We actually don't use that any kind of lines that of course work, but we have always to read through them, and we just used like left aligned text. So it makes it much easier for it's much more like clear and serene, and it's more easier for our audience to read. So use white space as a breathing space, so to speak, and align your text so it's next to the items that are important, like here, and use those blocks that people actually know to differentiate what they look at. And we see that from example like here, if that would be a web page, it's an old one, and if we don't we use the same, there is like some not the visual order going on. And by just using the kind of alignment and using probably here different colors, you see that kind of approach, it is much clearer, because we have also we reduce the amounts of criteria, but you realize the reading from the left-hand side, it changes because we created visual order and we use design principles to actually make it more clear. So it's very important, thinking about visual order, don't put anything on the white canvas, but like align things that belong to each other, like text, use design principles, things that belong, like use the design principle, proximity, whatever, so that people are actually using a kind of visual human perception, and which works very well. And of course, we should use white space so that the information is not all over the place, but is on very certain areas so people can read through that. Leave everything that is not necessary away. And of course, that's things you can increase contrast to set the focus, what you have seen here, to put like different typos. So we can see here, even in the effective data visual, we didn't use any different color. We just used shades of gray. Okay, black. You could say the different color, but we didn't use a lot of different colors. We just opened the contrast, but you soon realize that the demonstration results and the text what we have here actually belongs to each other. So it's very clear. And we could leave away those lines leading from the graph to the text. So I would like you, before the break, actually to invite you to a short exercise, which you will do. We will actually go through that kind of creating visual order, and I'd like you to invite you to that example. If you look at that example here, that comes directly from Excel. Probably you need some kind of background information. Okay, let's think me being I'm working in a big company, and I'm a team lead for processing problem tickets, the internal problem tickets from our employees, because they have probably support problems, their computer isn't working or the update didn't work. And so we actually our customers would be employees from our own company, and they reach us, and they as you know, they send in problem tickets, and our team is responsible to handling those tickets. And you realize, and at the end, let's make an example. At the end of the year, I realized, because it was during April, 2 of our team members left our team. And we realized then suddenly, after the coming months in June, July, I heard a lot of complaints from the other team members they had to work so much and they had to work overtime. And I realized that during the late months, that actually I probably should think about hiring more people. So what I want to do is actually I want to use that and use that as starting for a indicator that I wish more. Second, I think about producing a data visualization that is readable with very short time, not being there, and the person should be able to read what I want from them. So that means first step, I plotted a kind of, we can see here, there are different ticket volumes being processed, and you realize after I've done that in a database, that after the people left us, that's the kind of deviation that's coming on. So that means the tickets we are able to process within our team actually is not that much, or not that high as those that come in. And that's probably those people that are missing or that actually left our team, they're responsible. We're not able to actually solve all the problem tickets. So this is coming out from Excel, and I now want you to actually look at the diagram, and I would like you to you can probably do it also during the break to really change things. You probably need to put it on pen and paper or do it in pen and paper. Think about what you could leave away, what is unnecessary, even if there are very trivial things, but things that you would leave away because it's no additional information, or thinking about things that can be done more simpler because, yeah, very simple steps, thinking about visual order, thinking about p-attentive attributes, and think about what you could change, and then just redraw the diagram with pen and paper on your paper. You can use color if you want to, but you don't need to. And then after you've done that, I would like you to make a photo again and upload it onto Miro. Okay, I think it's very simple, but probably it looks so trivial, but you think, okay, but it's already simple. No, there are I think 5 or 6 items that you could still make it more simple, that the information from the diagram is even more clearer. And think about creating visual order. Think about it. What would you diagram that would make it even more simpler to read and leave all the things that are not important away? Okay, any questions in regards to the exercise? If not, I would say you can then go again. It's on the Miro board, and I have to so that you can see it. It's a size, and if no questions, I would invite you to starting that. And again, it mustn't be like an aesthetical pleasing, but just what things you could change. You don't have to redraw it, but if you redraw it, you really think about it. You leave everything away, because otherwise you have to redraw it yourself. And so that's kind of some cognitive load experience you have if you have to include things that probably you could leave away. Okay. You can start. I would say it's about 10 minutes. No, it's not about 10 minutes. I think 5 minutes should be enough to really think about very simple things that you go with. I will start the timer, and you can start working. And the timer starts now.